Ready? Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started. Welcome, everybody, to this special joint meeting of the City Council's Transportation Committee, which I chair, and the Planning and Land Use Committee, chaired by my colleague, Jose Huizar. We are joined today by fellow members of my committee, Mr. Koretz, Mr. Huizar, who also serves on my committee, and Mr. David Rue. Joining us from the Plum Committee, Mr. Harris Dawson, Mr. Cedillo, Mr. Englender, and Mr. Fuentes. We will begin with item number one.
Council member, item one is an issue basically that enables you to go into closed session.
Yes, I believe there is a desire to go into closed session to get a briefing from the City Attorney's Office on the sort of legal landscape that brought us to this moment. We have 3 public comment cards on item number one, so we'll take those before we go into closed session. That's George Abrahams, Jim Gagan, and Ann Gagan.
The 2035 mobility plan is in trouble for the same reason that the 2012 Hollywood Community Plan update was overturned, late additions to the plans in violation of the law. The city has a problem that it just doesn't want to follow the law. The culture of rule breaking is pervasive in the entire city government, from building and safety to planning to the city commissions to the city council and to the mayor. Angelinos are thus compelled to sue to ensure that the city follows the law. Mr. Mayor, tell your city departments and the commissioners to stop being scofflaws. Council members, stop confirming individuals to positions who are scofflaws. And Mr. Mayor and council members, stop being scofflaws yourselves.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, gentleladies. My name is Ann Gagan. I live in Whitley Heights for 35 years. I am the youth chair on Hollywood Hills West Neighborhood Council. However, I speak for myself as an individual. Today, I came specifically to say that we support the 2 lawsuits against the plan. And I think the overwhelming majority of the people in the city who commented on 2 Los Angeles Times articles that add up to about 2,000 against the plan agree. I would like to thank and honor Councilmember Cedillo, Councilmember Koretz, and our new Councilmember David Rue, who had the guts to stand up for their own constituents, to really listen to the people when the rest of you forgot about your constituents. As KNX said yesterday in the news report, this is a plan that will assuredly add more congestion to our already overly congested streets. Thank you.
Jim Gagan, Hollywood Hills West Neighborhood Council Traffic Chair, Hollywood resident, speaking for myself. We support Councilman Rue's amendment to the mobility plan. We're well aware of the fact you're breaking the law with this. We've got to sue you again. We've got to win again. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment for item number one. Given that there's a large number of people here in the room and there's a relatively smaller number of elected officials in the room, we are going to go into the back room for a closed session so that you can stay seated and stay in the room. So we will adjourn into or recess into closed session in the back room, and we will come back as soon as we can. We have returned from closed session, and City Attorney, do we have a report?
Councilman Bonin and the committee members, on item number 1, there was no action taken.
Great, thank you very much. So we move now to item number 2.
Item 2, Councilman, is consideration of the final EIR, and as well as a motion by yourself, Councilman members Huizar, Fuentes, Buscaino, to rescind the August 11th resolution to adopt Mobility Plan 2035 as amended, and also second component is to adopt the resolution to consider the draft Mobility 2035 that was considered by the Planning Commission back on May 28th and June 5th.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have, I haven't finished counting, but I'd say we have a buttload of public speaker cards. I stopped counting at 40 because that's when he stopped talking. So, no, that's a mathematical term, Mr. Huizar. Yes, it is. Let's start with Gerard Wright, followed by Will Wright, followed by Dustin Baton.
We have 1 minute?
Yes,
Mr.
1
Chair?
minute.
Okay, very good. Gerard Wright, policy analyst for Move LA. Move LA supports the mobility element and with its bicycle, pedestrian, transit, and vehicle enhancements that create a comprehensive vision for mobility that encourages and requires a bottom-up approach that the many diverse communities that will traverse both locally and regionally in through the city of Los Angeles. That's important for the long-term health for our city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And just for those keeping track, there are 55 speaker cards, and we'll have lovely parting door prizes for those who use less than 60 seconds.
Good afternoon. My name is Will Wright. I'm here as a car-free Angelino, a constituent of CD1, and a member of the AIA Los Angeles staff. Here to commend your leadership on this issue. This is a heavy lift. Many of us have been working with you on this for 7 or 8 years. I don't know if you remember the context. I also want to commend the Planning Department and Department of Transportation for the excellent outreach that they have provided to the community for the last 5-6 years. And just to sort of recontextualize the narrative here, I think this could be helpful. Urban infill was being slowed down dreadfully by out-of-date street standards. The effort to then not do the unnecessary street widening, BOE suggested, hey, let's redo the mobility element. The mobility element that you see in front of you is adopted by the Planning Commission will alleviate that unnecessary street widening that is belaboring the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dustin Batten with BizFed, the Los Angeles County Business Federation, and we urge passage of the mobility element as it currently stands with no amendments to the vision. We commend the work of the Planning Department and LA DOT in completing such a visionary document with such a thorough community outreach plan. We also commend the innovative balanced network approach and mobility hubs in the mobility element, which will serve the needs of transit riders, cyclists, pedestrians, and truck and vehicle drivers and encourage more intermodal trips. We especially support investing in the vehicle enhanced network, which will help move people, goods, and transit and access vehicles more efficiently on our roadways and help people get to and from transit stations through carpool, shuttle, taxi, car share, etc., rather than being in gridlock trying to get to these stations. For the past 7 years, BizFed has polled its 155 members, and the top 5 issue all 7 years was saving commute time. BizFed members are part of the Mobility Element Working Group, and we are pleased to continue to advocate for this innovative multi-mobility vision as it currently stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Next 5 speakers are Deborah Murphy, Richard Worth, Juan Jose Osorio, Brother John Montgomery, and Robert Brody.
Good day, council members. I'm Deborah Murphy. I'm the executive director and founder of Los Angeles Walks. I also serve as the chair of the city's Pedestrian Advisory Committee and on the Vision Zero Alliance, and I'm a resident of the Silver Lake community. I support rescinding your previous approval and adopting the new resolution. We need to put safety first, as stated in the mobility element. Over 200 people die each year in the city of Los Angeles. We have to change that. We all need choices. We should be able to walk, bike, share a ride in a car, in a bus, or drive alone even if we need to. We're all pedestrians. We all need new street standards that keep the curbs where they are, where we can widen sidewalks, provide safer crossings for kids, for seniors, for the disabled, for all of us. We need safe streets for all now. Thank you.
Richard Worth. Folks could line up after Mr. Worth. It's Juan Jose Osorio, Brother John Montgomery, Robert Brody, and then Lisa Sarkin.
Hi, Richard Worth. I live in Los Feliz for the last 27 years. I'm an avid bicyclist. I have 3 bikes. I love to bike, but I like to bike on the LA River, Griffith Park, Elysian Park, where there's not cars. Bicycle paths are wonderful. Put them on quiet side streets. I live in a neighborhood where everybody is crisscrossing to get to the 5 freeway. The freeway is this neighborhood's already almost in gridlock. When you take away lanes of traffic, it goes completely into gridlock. You can barely get home. And I know the deal is you want to get people out of cars onto bicycles. There are certain groups that will never be on bicycles. They are the disabled, obese, elderly, also people that are able-bodied that do not want to ride a bicycle. So please rescind some of these bike paths. They're putting our city in complete gridlock. They're polluting the air and driving everybody crazy. Thank you.
Juan Jose Osorio.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Just for the record, I wanted to announce that Studio City Neighborhood Council submitted 2 community impact statements on this item, against unless amended on both of them.
Great, thank you. Let me also note at this time that we've stopped accepted public comment cards, so we'll take comments from those who are here, but no additional ones once they come in. Next speaker is Brother John Montgomery.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Brother John Montgomery. I'm a resident of CD1 and also the principal of Cathedral High School. I was here in August when we first had this hearing. At that time, I was concerned about the public safety element, being the principal of a school which is heavily dependent upon public transportation and kids being dropped off at school. I'm very concerned that we're rushing this plan and that not enough public comment has been given to it, particularly within my district, CD1, which serves a lot of low-income families that do not have the time or opportunity to come down here like I do. I think it would be very nice, and I did submit a letter to Councilman Huizar and Councilman Bonin to offer Cathedral High School as a site within CD1 to allow members easy access to attend a meeting like this. So I would urge us to please slow down and allow for greater public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Brody, followed by Lisa Sarkin, followed by Barry Johnson, Sandy Brown, and Liz Amsden.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a 32-year resident of Mount Washington, and I'm here to support Councilman Cedillo's position of rescinding the resolution and sending the mobility plan back for proper vetting. 64% of the streets in the greater Northeast CD1 will be impacted by this plan. My major concern is the response time for our first responders, specifically the fire department and the 9/11 emergency people, who have said that it will impact them in their time to get to people in need. So I want to know who's willing to stand up when the first person dies because the first responders couldn't get there within the minutes that are required to save a life. Who's going to raise their hand and say it's my fault? Thank you.
Lisa Sarkin, Studio City Neighborhood Council. I'm the Vice President, Chair of the Land Use Committee. You have before you our 2 motions. I'm not going to read them now because it doesn't give me enough time to say anything else. But this entire episode changes everything relating to the City of Los Angeles. And if we don't have enough time to comment on it, which we have not, then you need to start over, you need to slow down, you need to do something else, because this is not going to work in the valley. We have no transit, actually, and trying to force people to get on a bike to drive down a street is not going to work. We need this to slow down, and more comments need to be taken from the public. Thank you.
Barry Johnson, followed by Sandy Brown, followed by Liz Amsden, then Maria Elena Garcia, and Nancy Wyatt.
Barry Johnson, Studio City stakeholder. I'm all for bike lanes wherever you can put them in the city, as long as they don't take an automobile lane away. Recently, in Studio City, Toluca Lake, and North Hollywood, Vineland Avenue had a lane taken away in each direction. Now, during rush hour, as I was going northbound on Vineland, I have been witnessing on a daily basis a 2.5-mile traffic jam from the 101 freeway to nearly Magnolia Boulevard, in people just waiting to get on the southbound 101 freeway. This didn't happen before the bike lanes were there. Again, I say I'm all for bike lanes, but not where they take away a lane of an automobile traffic lane. And, you know, sitting there to get on it for 2.5 miles is just ridiculous. Something needs to change, and this whole plan needs to go back to the drawing board. You're trying to institute it too quickly.
Thank you. Sandy Brown?
Sandy Brown, President of Homey Westwood Property Owners Association and a member of the Neighborhood Council in Westwood. I would just like to say that for all of those council members who support neighborhood councils, there was no time at all for at least half of the neighborhood councils to even come to the hearing or comment on it in a neighborhood council meeting. Our meeting actually is tomorrow night. I would recommend that the mobility plan that was adopted by council must be reviewed and must be sent back to the CPC. The plan failed to examine effects on public safety, air quality, and traffic. There will be an increase in police and fire response time, as well as greater emissions from vehicles forever stuck in traffic. The plan opens the barnyard door in the name of safety and traffic calming to bring on more development to a city with the worst traffic in the country and a serious crumbling infrastructure. Thank you.
Liz Amston, Highland Park. I'm supporting the motion to rescind the resolution to adopt the draft mobility plan and strongly oppose reverting to the May version. We need to address this plan from scratch and get real community input. While I applaud its intent, I have serious reservations about implementation. The plan claims to put safety first and include informed choices, access, and clean environment. I don't see it. Greenhouse gases are not reduced if virtually the same amount of traffic has to go through, a narrow corridor. In fact, it increases when one lane either direction is removed and people have to sit unmoving, revving their engines. What happens when people are stuck in traffic behind lumbering buses and behemoth garbage trucks, where turn lanes are used for delivery truck parking and bicyclists are not held to basic traffic laws, when emergency vehicles can't get by? Road diets are a diet for road rage and public danger. While the efforts to become a greener city are laudable, you don't go from crawling to winning races overnight. You need to create the infrastructure, proper public transportation, work schedule conducive to wider time frame for commuting, and a culture does not think every 16-year-old is owed a car for their birthday. We need to think outside the box.
Maria Elena Garcia, Nancy Wyatt, Ann Walnum, Mario Marufo, Eli Flores, Rogelio Medina. Maria Elena Garcia here?
Good afternoon. My name is Mario Marufo. I'm the Lincoln Heights Chamber of Commerce Vice President, and I'm also the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council. I'm neither for nor against this proposed ordinance you guys are going through, and I have nothing against bikes. What I do have against is the fact that decisions are being made for our community without asking our opinion or having the proper outreach. Regardless of what is done or what the moves you guys want to do, I think it's important that you guys reach the residents that they're going to be mostly affected and get their opinion on how they feel about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to make sure I'm getting all these guys. Maria Elena Garcia is no longer here.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Wyatt. I'm a 50-year resident.
Just a second, ma'am. Just 1 second. I just want to make sure that Ms. Garcia is not here. Okay.
Sorry.
You may go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Wyatt. I'm a 50-year resident of Highland Park, and I live 0.6 of a mile from Figueroa Street. I'm here to thank Councilman Cedillo for providing several public hearings for public input, and he has heard us. Our community has numerous reasons for opposing the loss of traffic lanes. Figueroa Street is a parallel street to the freeway, the 110 freeway, and the street is used very frequently for traffic diversion when freeway traffic is blocked. Our community has many significant issues which prevent the acceptance of this plan. Please listen to our councilman. He has heard us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Walnum, followed by Eli Flores and Rogelio Medina.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm Ann Walnum. I live on Mount Washington, but I don't consider myself only Mount Washington. I consider myself most of Northeast LA. I've been there 60 years. I appreciate it. I want to speak about the adequacy of the bike lane presenters first at Greater Cypress Park Neighborhood Council, of which I was a member. The person who spoke told us, this is finalized, there will be no changes. That was more than 2 years ago. The next place I was Arroyo Seco Neighborhood Council. The presenter there was also not a city employee, not a representative of an elected official. He would not allow me to present an alternate plan that had been developed by several people in the Highland Park Heritage Trust. The one organization that had a fair presentation of bike issues was the Highland Park Neighborhood Council. At this point, I want to thank Councilman Cedillo for not making it too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Eli Flores, Rogelio Medina, Irene Holguin, Veronica Olmos, Leslie Olmos.
Hello, my name is Eli Flores. I'm representing LEAD in Lincoln Heights. And I just wanted to talk about that the mobility plan as it currently stands has not fully represented the voice of Lincoln Heights, and I'm talking to Lincoln Heights because that's where we are from. We've been surveying the community for the last month to 2 months, and my young people and I have found that the community has really brought 4 things to the table that they really care about currently. The first one on top is improved public transportation and traffic. Second has been more access to food and healthy food options. Third has been improved education and access. And then fourth has been safe passages to and from school, and this includes issues with traffic and also includes issues of violence as well. And so I just wanted to say that the mobility plan as it currently stands, in my opinion, is not fully representing the voice of Lincoln Heights and the people. So I ask that more grassroots work be done to pull out the voice of Lincoln Heights to be truly represented in the plan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rogelio Medina. I am the Director of Educational Services with the Youth Build Charter School of California, and I work in the council district. I am here to speak for those youth that are part of our school, the parents that are part of our school that had no voice in this plan. And so I commend those that want to increase the voice and democracy of their constituents. And we're here to say that we have data that shows that while public transportation is everybody's forefront, we call for a plan that puts people first, safety first, and that listens to its constituents. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Irene Holguin. I'm with Arroyo Vista Family Health Center. Arroyo Vista is a nonprofit community health center with 2 medical clinics in Council District 1. Arroyo Vista opposes the adoption of the May 2015 version of the Mobility Plan 2035. Arroyo Vista's opposition is because of the lack of community participation in its drafting process. Arroyo Vista respectfully requests meetings, workshops, and/or community planning area forums to be held in Council District 1 in order to increase community participation, making this process more inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. Veronica Olmos, followed by Leslie Olmos, Victor Murillo, R.J. Strotz, Flora Bautista.
Good afternoon. My name is Veronica Olmos. I am the Executive Director of Central City Neighborhood Partners, and we manage the Westlake Pico Union Family Source Center. This afternoon, I am here with representatives from our community to express our concern with the Mobility Plan 2035. While we recognize that a lot of work has gone into developing what has been identified as a progressive, forward-thinking, and balanced plan to address our city's transportation issues, it has failed to collect the input from some of our most vulnerable communities. like Westlake. Westlake was recently ranked by HCID as having the greatest percent of families with children living below poverty. It also has the highest number of residents that rely on public transit as their primary mode of transportation. Westlake residents care deeply about improving transportation, and not one community meeting was held in the Westlake community, and that's not acceptable. There's a digital divide, and relying on the internet to gather ideas means their voices are not heard. We're here today to voice our priority concern for pedestrian safety and to make safety a priority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Leslie Olmos. I am from the community of Lincoln Heights and Cypress Park, longtime resident, 37 years. And I am a little concerned because I have children in Lincoln High School as well as Nightingale. We have a high traffic volume area in that area as well as buses idling. And if you guys get rid of one lane, where will the bikes go once our buses are idling there to pick up our children, our students? Over 1,000 cars pass through Figueroa to enter into the 110 freeway. And I don't see how that will help our students be safe. If you guys want to talk about safety, let's talk about safety for all. For instance, maybe putting up more lighted up crosswalks so our children won't have to run across the street, or perhaps open up our underground tunnel in front of Nightingale, light it up for us so the pedestrians and the students can go there. Also, we were not asked for our input, which is very unfair. It is a one-sided deal. Please, please get our community input. Thank you very much.
Victor Murillo, Solano Canyon. Thank you, Mr. Cedillo, for allowing us to come out here and speak on this. While I respect the less than 1% of Angelinos that actually ride bikes and need this lane done, I disagree with it. Added traffic along North Broadway, along Lincoln Heights, heading out to Highland Park, as far as Pasadena, just a nightmare. That's less. That's more time in traffic and less time with our families. Not going to work. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Is R.J. Strotz here?
Yes, I wanted to give my time to, I'm sorry, I wanted to give my time to any speaker from Fix the City.
I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't transfer or bank time, so you can have the 60 seconds for yourself, or
I will take my currency in time, yes. Thank you. Yes, my name is R.J. Strotz, and I'm a resident of Windsor Village, and that's a historic neighborhood along the Park Mile District. And it's my understanding that part of the mobility plan is to work hand in hand with Recode LA, which would require densification of a historic district. My main concern with the MP 2035 is that it will promote cut-through traffic through residential neighborhoods. Wilshire Boulevard has been designated as a transit-enhanced network. This will enhance cut-through traffic through a large concentration of historic neighborhoods in the inner city. I don't think enough time has been devoted by the city, including city planning, to determine the impacts in the historic area or areas of Los Angeles. I think more time is needed, and let's not speed through this and ram this down the throats of Los Angeles.
Thank you. Flora Bautista, followed by Yvonne Shane, Beverly Grossman-Palmer, Margarita Gomez, Victor Aquino, Georgina Serrano.
Hi, my name is Flora Bautista, and I'm here to say that I oppose Mobility Plan 2035, and I also live in Windsor Village, and we're just south of Wilshire Boulevard, and as it is, it's a gridlock, and closing a lane down on Wilshire Boulevard is going to have a lot more congestion. So please give more time in doing more research as to the impact, as to what it's going to do to the safety of all of the pedestrians and all of the people who drive the cars. And I believe the bikes really belong in the parks, and it's not a way of transportation in LA City. It could be in a different city, but not LA. LA was not planned to really have bicycle lanes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Yvonne Shane from District 4, and I've been going to different plum meetings, land use meetings, and been informed about this particular proposal that you have, and it might work on some streets. I live on Hollywood Boulevard, which is a 2-lane street. during peak traffic hours, and that's when the bicyclists are also out. So if you want to kill people, by all means, put these bike lanes on those busy streets. Poor, poor, poor planning. Thank you.
Beverly Palmer.
Hello, I'm speaking on behalf of Fix the City, who filed a lawsuit alleging serious substantive deficiencies in the EIR for Mobility Plan 2035. Nothing in the motion remedies those failures: the failure to analyze properly the greenhouse gas emissions, the noise, the air quality, and the impacts to public safety from the increased congestion that so many have complained about standing before you today. All this motion does is attempt to correct a blunder, but makes it worse. By responding to our lawsuit by deleting amendments that were in fact beneficial, when instead the City Council could send them to the City Planning Commission and to the Mayor for their review, only makes matters worse. Rescission of the mobility plan is in fact an amendment to the general plan, and the City Council is not following Charter Section 555 and requiring City Planning Commission and Mayor to review that amendment prior to making it. The mobility plan that was reviewed by the City Planning Commission, the original one, may no longer be adopted. That plan must have been adopted within 75 days of
Thank you.
approval. The time has passed. Thank you.
Margarita Gomez, Victor Aquino, Georgina Serrano, Ashley Hansock, and Bertram Emanuel.
Good afternoon. My name is Margarita Gomez. I'm here representing Central City Neighborhood Partners and myself as a resident of the Westlake area. CCMP was involved working with the with the community in developing a transportation plan which identified several pedestrian improvement projects which are not prioritized in the mobility plan, but a safety concern for the families we serve and myself as a resident, and ask that you do not approve the mobility plan that is before you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Victor Aquino.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wizar and council members. My name is Georgina Serrano. I'm a community organizer with Trust LA, and I'm here to support the Mobility Plan 2035 as it is. So we need a bike line on Central Avenue. I bike with my community. So we bring, our participant is 3 years old, and the older is more than 17 years old. So we bike on Central Avenue. So we really appreciate it. You approve and support the mobility plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley Hansack, followed by Bertram Emanuel.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashley Hansack, and I'm a resident of Watts. I live in the 15th district, but I work in the 9th district. I'm here today in support of the Mobility Plan 2035, in particular bike lanes on Central Avenue. As a South LA resident, I primarily use my bike and my very own 2 legs to get around the city. Last August, I was hit by a car in South LA. I recognize that every day I'm at a high risk of dying because of the lack of bike lanes in my neighborhood. You all have the ability to significantly reduce the likelihood of deaths in South LA by supporting the Mobility 2035 plan with bike lanes on Central Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next few speakers are Bertram Emanuel, Derek Gonzalez, Estuardo Mazariegos, Yesenia Morales, Rosa Perez, and Laura Lake.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Emmanuel Beltran, and I live in the constituent number 9. And I'm here to talk about social justice and civil rights issues. From the hundreds of bicycle serves and petitions that we had conducted in our community, we had come to the conclusion that the bicyclists in South Los Angeles are not the stereotypic rider. The riders in South Los Angeles are workers going to and from work, students commuting to school, and mothers running family errands. To deny these hardworking people a bicycle lane on Central Avenue would further segregate South Los Angeles from the rest of the city, and it would leave the impression that their lives don't matter. We ask for the pass of the Mobility Plan 2035 as is for Central Avenue. Thank you.
Derek Gonzalez. Estuardo Mazariegos.
My name is Derek, and I live in South Central, and I think that there's, I think that there's have to be a bike lane, cause on Central Avenue, because too many people died, and
Cool. You got it? You good? High five.
Thanks, buddy.
Hi, my name is Estuardo Mazariegos. And for the folks in South Los Angeles, bicycle lanes are a necessity. Our folks don't ride for recreational reasons. They do it out of economic necessity, moving to and from work and school. We're talking about mothers transporting their kids literally on bicycle seats on their bikes, going to and from on Central Avenue to the different schools, different shops. This is about making sure that our folks could spend their money in a safe way, could actually transport themselves and connect themselves to the rest of the city. For a very long time, South Los Angeles has been segregated from both planning and just like the right thing to do. So we're asking for folks to connect South Los Angeles through Central Avenue, Watts, and Little Tokyo. I personally have been on the streets talking and taking surveys and collecting petitions for a bike lane on Central Avenue, and I've talked to the folks, and 3/4 of the people that we talk to are workers. If the folks that move our city aren't being protected, then our city will come to a standstill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yesenia Morales, followed by Rosa Perez.
Good afternoon. My name is Yesenia. I am a resident of South LA. I currently live in the 9th District, and I'm here to support for the Mobility Plan 2035. I wasn't aware of the importance of a bike lane until I started doing surveys and asked how many residents bike along Central Avenue and how many use them as a main use of transportation. It concerned me even more when I looked through the data and saw how many people have been in an accident on Central Avenue, and it became even more real when I tried biking along Central Avenue and saw how cars pay no attention to cyclists and try to push me off the road. So I'm here today to demand the passing of the Mobility Plan 2035 with bike lanes on Central Avenue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rosa Perez. All right, Laura Lake. After Laura will be... Oh, she is. All right, please come on up.
You guys have translation?
Do we have a translator here?
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Rosa Pérez. Yo soy residente del sur de Los Ángeles.
I'm a resident of South Los Angeles.
Soy un constituyente del Distrito 9
I'm a
de la
constituent
ciudad.
of Council District 9 in the
Estoy
city of
aquí
Los
para
Angeles.
apoyar el plan de movilidad del 2035 como
Señora,
es.
señora, I'm here to support the
Esto
mobility plan of
incluye un
2035.
carril de bicicleta
Un momento, si usted puede hablar para que el traductor, is that the correct way of saying it?
en la Avenida Central.
I'm for a bike lane in South Los Angeles on Central Avenue.
Yo necesito este carril porque yo voy con mi hijo a hacer compras en la avenida
I know
y
I need
siempre
this lane
estamos en
so
bicicleta.
I needed this lane so that I can safely be on a bicycle to do the shopping with my children.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fuentes. Laura Lake, followed by Sarah Mitchell, then Hillary Norton, Eric Bruins, Adriana Mendoza, Mehmet Berker, and Ronald Ziff.
Good afternoon, Dr. Laura Lake for Fix the City. We don't understand why you have so much trouble following the law. This is not a mobility plan. By your own admission, reducing congestion is not the goal of MP 2035. Metro's letter in the EIR was stronger. It said, if improving mobility is not a goal, then please rename the element as something else. This plan confuses access with mobility. The former asks, can I get there? The latter asks, how fast can I get there and how much will it cost? That's mobility. We ask that you take this back to the neighborhood councils, take it back to the planning commission, and come up with a plan that improves mobility and the quality of life for this city. Start over and engage everyone in the city.
Thank you. Sarah Mitchell.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Sarah Mitchell. I'm with the Valley Industry and Commerce Association. We represent tens of thousands of employees and employers that have to make their way across the city and the county to get to their jobs and to have their customers come to them. We have supported the vision of the mobility plan as long as we are performing triage the appropriate way on our mobility issues. That means tackling first our commuter and congestion problems. In the Valley, as we've said many times to you, we have no rail and we have many crowded and infrequent buses. The long-term vision of the mobility plan is a multimodal approach. This is extremely important because there's a lot of different ways to get from point A to point B to point C to point D. We know oftentimes our trips are not just point A to point B, but a lot in between. But we do need to make sure that we use our resources on our most crowded corridors and neighborhoods. With that priority in place, Mobility 2035 can certainly improve the way that we get around in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Hillary Norton, followed by Eric Bruins.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Hillary Norton. I'm the Executive Director of Fixing Angelino Stuck in Traffic Fast. We agree that traffic and especially gridlock is the #1 concern of Angelinos, which is why we are here to urge your adoption of the Mobility Plan 2035 Vision Plan today. As such, FAST has worked with the Planning Department and LADOT for the past 7 years to create a balanced network approach which serves pedestrians, cyclists, transit riders, and vehicle riders. Most especially, we support mobility hubs as a feature of the plan to bring together technology, intermobility, community safety, and crucial services such as bathrooms and retail to transit stations. Let's remind ourselves that this is a 20-year vision plan which can help seek funds today for our better mobility tomorrow. Let's work together on an implementation plan to include more public hearing, to look at how we balance all of these needs and how we focus on which needs are more important in which parts of the community. But this vision plan is crucial today. We urge your adoption today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Eric Bruins. I'm the Planning and Policy Director for the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. We urge you to continue your support of the Mobility Plan 2035. I think it's worth clarifying that this is not a bike plan. We already have that as a city. That was passed 5 years ago. This is a plan of how bikes fit with the rest of the system. And so if you're worried about how the bike plan affects gridlock in your neighborhood, that's what the mobility plan answers. That is the question we're trying to solve. And so it's also the result of a 5-year process that included neighborhood council activity kits. So if your neighborhood council, a lot of neighborhood councils did provide input over that 5-year process. It might have happened so long ago that people forgot about it. It also includes a lot of unprecedented neighborhood protection. We actually have performance measures about how much traffic can go down your residential street. That is entirely new to the city of Los Angeles. And as LACBC, we're looking forward to working with you to implement Vision Zero in the city of Los Angeles and implement the networks in collaboration with the various communities that are affected by this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Adriana Mendoza. I'm the Associate State Director for ARP California. ARP California's top priority is livable communities for all ages. Our guiding principle that support our work in livable communities for all ages includes creating transportation options so that all individuals have a range of safe, accessible, dependable, and affordable transportation options, including alternatives to driving that enhance mobility, promote independence, facilitate employment opportunities, assure non-emergency transportation to medical services, and foster social engagement. We're working with local jurisdictions such as the City of LA to work on, for example, on Vision Zero, with the Vision Zero Alliance, as well as the city's Vision Zero Task Force. The elimination of barriers can promote livable communities that have positive intergenerational impact. That's why we are supporting this effort. Older adults are extremely vulnerable, just want to say that, making up 20% of pedestrian fatalities of all ages. It's no surprise that nearly half of those ARP surveyed 50 and older say
Ma'am,
they could
ma'am, I'm
not
sorry. I need to be
safely
fair to
cross.
everybody, and there's folks who have an opposing point of view who stopped at 1 minute. So, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Mehmet Berker. I'm a board member of the Mid-City West Community Council, as well as a member of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee for the City of LA. All Angelinos, those that rely on active transportation and transit now, those that would like to, and even those that have no interest to at all and want to drive their whole lives, deserve safe, efficient, and accessible choices for their transportation. When it comes down to it, you can have a street network that prioritizes car lanes over all else, is in effect a network for cars only, and as a result accepts thousands of traffic fatalities a year, because that's what we've had for the past 100 years now. Or you can work for a street network that creates safe, accessible, efficient networks for traveling by bike, by walking, by taking transit, or even by driving, which is what the mobility plan is seeking to do. So I urge the council to readopt the mobility plan as it is a step forward in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ziff, and after Mr. Ziff, Max Podemski, Vanessa Gray, Robert Pepe, Stephanie Vendig, Nurit Katz.
Ronald Ziff, Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. We've asked you to be exempted from the plan until a plan is finalized for the Sepulveda Pass for 4 reasons. 1, there are 800,000 daily car trips between the Valley and West LA. Everyone passes through Sherman Oaks. It's the worst traffic problem in the country with a 3-hour daily traffic jam. The plan failed to recognize this and deal with it at all. 2, Van Nuys Boulevard will have 2 lanes removed for bicycle lanes and concrete barriers put up, 3 more lanes removed for a metro train, leaving 18 feet for cars. We will lose street parking, left turn pockets, emergency services, police, fire, and ambulances. 3, we've been told people will find other ways to get around. There's no other way to get to West LA, and 2/3 of the population of Sherman Oaks is over 65, cannot ride bicycles. And 4, later.
Thank you. Max Podemski.
Hello. My name is Max Podemski. I'm the planning director for Pacoima Beautiful, a community-based environmental justice nonprofit located in the northeast San Fernando Valley. In the neighborhoods we work in, the childhood obesity rate is as high as 50%. Public health officials such as Richard Jackson, former director of the Environmental Health Department at the CDC, have made the connection between the design of our environment and our health. And for the past 50 years in Los Angeles, we have designed our city with the goal of moving cars over even the health and safety of our children. This has resulted in neighborhoods that are bisected by unsafe moat-like streets where you are often taking your life into your hands when walking or biking. And yet we still have some of the worst traffic in the country. The current status quo would mean increasing traffic, decreasing health, and decreasing quality of life. We urge you to continue your support for the mobility plan because it will give us options. Residents will be able to get out of their cars and take the bus, walk, or bike to their destinations. This will create a healthier, safer, and more equitable city. Thank you.
Vanessa Gray.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Gray. I'm the Executive Director of Cycle, Cyclists Inciting Change Through Live Exchange. I want to urge the committee to adopt the mobility plan. I think this will help kids have a safe route to school and also help seniors to be able to be part of our community and have a safe way to walk to stores, to church, and to their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Vendig.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Vendig, and I am very involved with LA's older population through Griffith Park Adult Community Center, a senior center operated by LA Rec and Parks. In addition, I am on the Advisory Council on Aging of the Department of Aging. LA's older population is growing and is in a great need of a mobility plan that will make LA streets safe for all modes of transportation, whether it be walking, biking, using public transportation, or cars. That's why I support the mobility plan for 2035. Thank you.
Robert Pepe.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Bobby Pepe. I'm a homeowner in Silver Lake in CD 13. The issue is simple to me: safety first. Safety for drivers, safety for people on bikes, for people walking. Mobility Plan 2035 puts the safety of Angelinos before everyone else, and I support it. I urge council members to first consider the safety of their constituents and to support the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. After Nurit Katz, Renee Fortier, David Karwaski, Dennis Hindman, Jeff Jacobberger, Teresa Laughlin.
Thank you. I'm Nurit Katz, a lifelong resident of Los Angeles, grew up in CD2, currently living in CD5, Westwood representative for the Great Streets Initiative, and employee at UCLA who commutes over the notorious Sepulveda Pass. I'm here to urge you to adopt the mobility plan. It's a privilege to be here today, and there are a lot of people who can't be here today to share with you that for them, biking and bus and other modes are not a luxury. They're a necessity. They're how people get to work every day, and those people deserve to be safe, and they deserve not to get killed on their way to work. So I think this is a matter of convenience for some and a matter of life for others, and that really needs to be taken into consideration. The Valley is not without modes of transit. We're standing here very close to the 10th anniversary of the Orange Line, and I would love to see more transit, more bike, more opportunities. Mainly, I also wanted to say that it's a lie that the elderly don't bike. My bike buddy is 90 years old. He's had 2 hip replacements, and we bike Mulholland, and not only in the parks. And bicycles, along with buses, are ways that people get around. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Renee Fortier, the Executive Director of Events and Transportation at UCLA. We support the adoption of the Mobility 2035. One of the things that we've been able to do at UCLA is encourage multimodalism. And by doing that, we've been able to significantly reduce vehicle trips below 1990 levels. And we also have much fewer people commuting by car. We have now more than 80% of our students who are commuter students are actually not driving alone, and almost 50% of our employees are not, and that is through encouraging multimodalism, which is what this plan would do. You can't widen your way out of the traffic problems in Los Angeles. You have to have a multimodal plan, and this plan does that. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Karwaski. I work for UCLA. I've been a transportation planner for 22 years, and I'd like to offer some empirical evidence that these strategies work. When I got to UCLA in 2006, we count our traffic coming in and out of campus every day, 125,000 vehicles per day. 2014, 100,000 vehicles per day. In those 10 years, we've added 6,000 students and 4,000 employees. So the concerns about public safety and the inability to get through are incorrect. Traffic will go down. This is the way to go, and I applaud your efforts. Thank you.
Hi, Dennis Hyman, Toluca Lake. The problem we have is the demand of driving exceeding the supply of lanes. We're not going to build our way out of it by double-decking the freeways. By offering multiple choices, we can make it more livable in our different communities in the city. Since 2005, the volume of driving's increased 9% for commuting, 15% for transit, and 143% for bicycle commuting. 43% increase for bicycle commuting on transit stations, bicycle boardings. The idea that we cannot change into multimodal is just false. Tokyo is a much bigger city geographically than LA, and it has 16% share for bicycling. It is growing for bicycle mode share for commuting, shrinking for driving. We need to change to offer more safety for bicycling. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jeff Jacobberger. I'm the chair of the city's Bicycle Advisory Committee and also serve on Metro's
West Side Central Service Council. Although much of the attention regarding mobility plan has been focused on bikes, as Eric Bruins noted, the mobility plan doesn't actually do much to change the city's policies on bikes. We already have a lot of bike supportive policies in the 2010 bike plan. Where it would make a huge difference is in transit. And in the city of Los Angeles, that has enormous benefits for lower income workers. In the city of LA, if you make more than $75,000 a year, 2.5% of those people take transit. If you make less than 25% a year, the number's 7.5 times higher, 18%. In many parts of LA, including Hollywood, Koreatown, Silver Lake, and Echo Park, the transit mode share for work trips is between 20 and 30%, whereas in the hills, it's about 4%. And so the question is, do we have a transportation plan that works for everyone or only for the affluent? Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speakers are Teresa Laughlin, George Abrahams, Ann Gagan, and Jim Gagan. Go ahead, George.
Charter Section 555 is being habitually violated. You violate it when you approve spot general plan amendment changes for Hollywood projects. You will be violating it today if you approve a new mobility plan. Any action you take today, other than instructing the Planning Commission to start the process over, will wind up in court. We know it, and you know it. Don't put the city through more litigation. Do the right thing. Start the process over, and this time, do it with notification of all community groups and with full public participation.
Thank you.
You will pass it. This is a deja vu moment of the Hollywood Community Plan, where it was recommended that that should go back when only for over 500 people who live within 500-foot radius of proposed changes were informed about it. So most of Hollywood didn't know about it, although the Planning Commission was commended at every hearing about letting all of Hollywood know about it. You know the outreach has been pathetic here. I heard the Joint Transportation Plum Committee meeting with the people up at the microphone. Give the people who want bike lanes, and the rest of Los Angeles that didn't even know about the plan and wasn't reached out to and can't get around their areas as it is now, like CD4, Councilman Ruth, thank you, then reach out to them and have input from the communities. I am the victim of a hit-and-run cyclist in Manhattan. I rode my bike all over Manhattan. Now I ride out at the bike path at the ocean. Memory loss, no SAG insurance yet. No one could track that cyclist, and I had to pay those hospital bills, and I could not work as an actress for a year. There's no safety in this plan. There's no precautions whatsoever. It is a land use plan for development, and you know it, and that's why you're pushing it through the way you push Millennium through and the way you push the Hollywood Community Plan through.
Thank you, ma'am. And that concludes public comment. I want to thank everybody from all different sides who came out to testify today or at any of the number of public hearings that have been held on the mobility plan for several years here in the city of Los Angeles. Staff has been working on this for a considerable period of time, and this has probably had some of the most exhaustive outreach of any general plan framework element in the city of Los Angeles. You know, it's worth noting that 47% of the trips in Los Angeles are of less than 3 miles in a city with relatively flat roads and generally pretty clement weather. 84% of those trips are made by car. We have designed a system, and we have in place a system under our 99 mobility element, a system that basically forces people into vehicles. And this is a plan that is about choice. This is a plan about giving people an opportunity to have more than one option for transportation in Los Angeles. This plan is about many things. One of the things that this plan emphasizes quite strongly is public safety. I thought perhaps some of the folks who testified and said it lacked a public safety element probably hadn't read it very closely, because in the summary of the mobility plan, goal number 1 is listed actually as safety first. This plan puts such a premium on public safety. It wants to decrease transportation-related fatality rates to 0 by 2035. Everyone benefits from safer streets when we do that. The mobility plan prioritizes the safety of school children on all streets and establishes 100 slow school zones operating with a half mile of schools by 2035. Some folks talked about the importance of safe routes for schools as a reason to object to the Mobility Plan 2035. Mobility Plan 2035 elevates safe routes for schools and makes them a much more higher priority than they are currently. Right now, Southern California leads the nation in fatal collisions at railroad crossings. The Mobility Plan's primary focus of safety first makes it a priority to better integrate goods movement, a critical component of the city's economy, with the rest of the transportation networks while protecting the health and safety of residents. This is a plan that puts public safety first. It's a plan that also puts equity first. Transportation today accounts for about 15 to 25% of household income, and that's a disproportionate impact on low-income families. This plan's goal is to reduce the average share of household income spent on transportation costs to 10% by 2035. This plan uses data to make sure that we are prioritizing our transportation decisions and our safety improvements based on data, not based on politics, to make sure that equity is baked into every decision we make. This is a plan that is about improving the city's infrastructure. Throughout the city, we always hear about the importance of improving our sidewalks. God knows they need a lot of work. Well, if the objective of this plan is fully implemented, the current estimated time it takes to repair the city's sidewalks throughout the entire city will be cut in half. This is a plan that is about environmental protection and about sustainability. The plan allows Green Street measurements to be in place to provide benefits so that we have multiple components of transportation and quality of life issues. By prioritizing a Green Streets philosophy, we'll help do a better job cleaning our water and recharging our local water resources, at the same time as improving transportation, public safety, and, important to note, emergency preparedness as well, because in so many parts of the city, we have a hard time getting fire trucks or ambulances by due to flooded streets because the streets become unnavigable. And if we have green streets, that helps address that problem. This plan finally also addresses connectivity and access by creating networks throughout the county. We're building out a rail system here with 5 new rail networks in Los Angeles County, hopefully more if we approve another ballot measure next year. This capitalizes on that investment and prioritizes pedestrian connectivity to the various different transportation options we have. It calls for enhanced sidewalk amenities at every major transit station in the city, or not every major transit station, every metro transit station in the city. Those include landscaping, shading, lighting, directional signage, shelters, curb extensions, mid-block crossings where feasible, ADA ramps, and pedestrian interval signal phases. It offers safe, consistent travel speeds and reliable travel times on 79 miles of key regional vehicle corridors. There's a lot of folks who've said this is going to slow traffic down. On the vehicle-enhanced networks, it actually makes speeds more reliable than they currently are. It actually improves traffic flow on 79 key miles of roadway in the city of Los Angeles. I just wanted to point out a few of those things that this plan offers because they've been lost in much of the press coverage. They've been lost in much of the public discourse on this. This is a big plan that does a lot of things to transform Los Angeles in almost every single way that everybody who testified, pro or con, has asked for. And so there's a lot in this plan to celebrate. Colleagues, do we have a desire to bring staff up, or would folks like to just get into a discussion? Mr. Weezer?
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. For the city attorney and the planning department, if we, the motion before us, what's before our respective committees, as stated, is to rescind the action taken by council. I'm sorry, what's before us is to rescind the mobility plan as amended and adopt the version sent forth by the Planning Commission. Those amendments that were made that will now no longer be in the plan, should we rescind, they will now go back to the CPC for review?
Michael LeGrand for the record, Director of Planning. Yes, that's correct. They would go back before the Citywide Planning Commission.
And is there, yes, City Attorney?
Terry Kaufman, Messias City Attorney's Office. They have to be initiated. The director can initiate under 11.5.6. So if the director initiates those amendments, they would go back to CPC.
If that is the intent of these committees and council, should we put that in the motion that we are asking the director to get a director's report to CPC, or do we just go with an understanding that that is the case?
I would say that you could indicate support for that.
We indicate support?
As opposed to you not recommend it, not request it, but that you support if the director would do that and exercise that authority.
And that action is called what? To the CPC? A director's report to the CPC?
Director's initiation of the amendments proposed by council.
Okay.
And just for the record, that is my intent to initiate those again before the Planning Commission after we fully analyze those and do the proper background work that's necessary, and then have it before the full City Planning Commission, then back to this body for your consideration with all the analysis.
Those are the amendments. And how quickly can we get them to the City PC?
Michael LeGrand for the record, we had proposed December 17th for the 3 amendments that were discussed prior, and then
And which amendments were those, for the record?
I believe it was adding some safety considerations to the forefront of the document, equity issues, and Ken, if you help me on the third.
Was it that
the role of the City Council and
okay, and just for the record, that request was to include the City Council in the implementation, not instead of the Mayor's office, but it was to do it jointly.
Correct.
Okay. Those are those 3. And what about the other amendments? There were several other amendments.
I'll let staff speak to that. Ken Bernstein.
Ken Bernstein, Principal City Planner. The additional 6 amendments, council motions that have been introduced previously, some of those do require additional environmental review. So our intention would be to prepare an addendum to the environmental impact report and bring those back to City Planning Commission. Our estimated date, we were proposing February 10th at the City Planning Commission for the additional amendments.
Okay, good, excellent. So, colleagues, I am, at least from my personal view, prepared to support the motion before us for those on the Plum Committee, and ask that we rescind the mobility plan as amended and adopt the version set forth by the City Planning Commission, and to also support the Planning Department conducting a director's initiative to move the amendments back to CPC. I full-heartedly support the plan. I think what we see before us is, again, Los Angeles leading the way, progressive planning. And I speak to this plan also coming from what I've seen in my council district, where we move forward with some of the concepts and ideas in this plan, and we've seen positive results. For example, on Colorado Boulevard, where we had a road diet, and we implemented some other safety measures, such as those that are called upon in this mobility plan. The last few years, we've seen only a 1 mile per hour reduction in vehicular traffic, getting from one end of Colorado to the other in Eagle Rock, while we've seen a 43% reduction in traffic collisions. And this data is now just coming out in some areas that we've implemented these types of strategies. And I think at the end of the day, those that are for and against this plan, we will see that this plan really is going to give us those targets, that vision that we all want to see, which is at the bottom line, safety for all. So, and I believe by us rescinding this and going back to CPC, asking them to look at the amendments, does 2 things. One, it clarifies something that, we want to assure in the litigation, that we are complying where we need to comply. And secondly, also, as we take up these amendments, it is also adhering to local council members' concerns. Some issues they would like to see further analyzed in their own districts, some issues that they would hope to accomplish in their own districts. And generally, we try to strike a balance in this city between a overall planning and local council members and communities' concerns and issues. And I think as those amendments come back, it's our attempt to strike that balance. So at this time, are there any questions or comments from members of the Planning Committee? Mr. Cedillo.
Mr. Chairman, I have some strong criticisms of the plan and the outreach, the lack of civic participation that was allowed in this. I want to note for the record, you know, Los Angeles has 3.8 million residents, and we speak over 92 languages here in the city, and yet the mobility plan community engagement only engaged 1,114 residents of the city of Los Angeles. That's 0.0002% of the city's population. The mobility plan's average participant was a 41-year-old male from only 3 zip codes, 90012, 90026, and 90027. Not a single one of the public meetings, the 4 citywide workshops, the 2 scoping meetings on the EIR, the 7 community planning area forums were in my district. You heard from my district today. You heard many members from a broad section of people who live in my district. And I'm of the mind that this needs to be sent back, that it needs to be started over, that there needs to be a fuller vetting, that we need more participation so that we could achieve and accomplish all the great things that are said about it, but seem to have been said and established only by less than a fraction of 1% of the people of the city of Los Angeles. Now, we know that for the city of Los Angeles, the number one concern is traffic. More than public safety, more than high cost of housing, more than homelessness, more than all these major issues that confront us in the city, the number one issue of the city is traffic congestion. And we know that this report says that it's going to increase traffic congestion. So how can we be asked to vote on this? I embrace and accept all the great aspirations of this document and all the hopes of it, but frankly don't see a plan and don't see that this has been vetted and that the public has had a full participation in developing this plan. And so what I would like to do is to send this completely back to the Planning Commission. We have generated 9 amendments, not 3, but 9 amendments that should go to the commission that reflect the input of the representatives from these districts, and I think it should go back to them. They should consider this, and that they should take all the 9 amendments for consideration.
Anybody else on the Planning and Land Use and Management Committee?
Oh, there was one other thing about the language, sir, and I think it's important. Mr. Fuentes did a great job of translation today. There are 92 languages spoken. Much of the information was done through the internet. And we know that there's this incredible digital divide in the city and in our society. And so if you use that, your public outreach is primarily on the internet to inform and gather the ideas of the public, then the divide leaves so many families out from many, many districts and communities who have a right to participate in this process. So we have to rethink this and make sure that we eliminate language barriers, income barriers, education barriers, that every resident, every citizen has the right to participate in this process. We all agree on the goals, on the public safety objectives. We all agree on the efforts to make safer communities and protect the environment and provide higher quality of life. But we can't do that without the people. And so I recommend that it goes back to the people, back to the Planning Commission, and a process is set up that incorporates input from all the people, not just some of the people, all the people, and that we set as a framework the 9 amendments that we've put forth from the council. I thank you.
Mr. Englander?
Yeah, I'll be brief, but I just want to say, I think in terms of staff and the outreach and the number of meetings that were scheduled, certainly not in every council district that we always hope to see, but citywide were conducted. Unfortunately, not a lot of people participated until, in fact, after we voted to pass this plan, was my phone ringing off the hook in the office and getting a lot of emails and the media covering every aspect of this, but not until really after the vote. And there's been a lot of input and discussion since then. And with that, in looking at the amendments, and that's really what's before us today because of the litigation. not so much the plan itself as much as the process and where we're at procedurally and what we can and can't do and what options are before us. With the plan and what was told to us both in committee and in the documents itself, a big part of it was that it was a vision plan not funded yet. That it's not an implementation plan per se that starts a clock rolling, but a guiding principle, many of which also directly affect planning and current projects that are happening right now and pending, either before the plan were submitted, during, and after, which puts a lot of things in limbo. The concern that I have, though, is one of the most critical elements, and I support Councilmember Rue's amendment that took public safety into account, and as Councilmember Bonin pointed out, this plan is wrapped around and cloaked with public safety elements to it. But having said that, one of the critical elements is the council oversight of the implementation in every step of the process. And from my experience, when we didn't have that in plans before, and I point to one specific street as a great example, which was Wilbur, where it was part of the overall bicycle master plan to put that bike lane in. When the department and the general manager, she herself came to the council office, and at the time I was not the council member, to my predecessor, and said, this is part of the plan, we're going to put it in. And he said, well, hold on a minute, I don't think this is going to work. This is a major corridor. We can't really afford to lose a lane there. Let's take this to the community, to the neighborhood council first. Let's get some input. Maybe there's some workarounds. We can look at some other streets. And they said, yeah, no, you don't really have the authority. We have the authority to inform you, which is what a lot of the plan says until we made that amendment. And then that weekend, Wilbur was restriped and we lost a lane. Literally, over 1,000 people showed up to 2 different meetings, and they were very upset. And it took about a year of compromise in trying to work out the details on just that one street. And that's what that one amendment makes and changes. Right now, what's before us is rescinding the amendments because of the procedural issues and sending those to the CPC and approving what did come in prior to the amendments. I'm curious as if we're able to bifurcate that vote or not, and I don't know the process of that, if we had 2 different vote options, because I do not support even the concept of the plan. We have, without the ability to have the responsibility, we have all the liability. And I look at it to neighborhoods, community organizations, key stakeholders, specifically neighborhood councils, that under the charter are advisory to us to get their input, and then us not have the ability to do anything and tie our hands behind our back. I have grave concern about that. And so that was a protection in place that I felt I was comfortable in moving the plan forward only with that. That was too important. And so right now, while I understand that if we rescinded what we supported prior to that and adopted what was passed under the original CPC report without those amendments, and those would come back at a future time, there's no guarantee that it would come back as proposed. So is there an option to bifurcate those 2 votes?
Terry Kaufman, Macias City Attorney's Office. I'm not sure I understand what you want to bifurcate.
So right now, the question before us is to, what's agendized, is to essentially rescind our previous vote and support the Director of Planning to move forward with his recommendations to CPC on the 9 amendments. That is what I understand what's before us. To rescind, correct?
So let me just see if I can clarify what you're asking. Are you asking, can council just rescind and not do the readoption?
Well, no. Can they rescind and do the readoption as one vote, and the request to, or the support to the Director of Planning on the other vote?
Yes, I think you can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Fuentes? No. Any other questions or comments from Plum Committee members? Okay. I'll leave it back to the Chair of Transportation Committee, Mr. Bonin.
Any questions from T Committee members? Mr. Kretz?
Well, not so much a question as comment. I think I have an experience that's been somewhat similar to Mr. Cedillo and Mr. Englander in terms of the inclusion of a bike lane in a section of Westwood. I think we had a similar response. The community is generally opposed, except for the cycling community. And yet, basically, when I objected, the department basically told me to take a flying leap and it would be in there. Ideally, that's not the approach I'd like to see used. I have some modest concerns about the plan as a whole. In some areas, it's a mobility plan. In some areas, I think it will be an immobility plan and will actually dramatically slow traffic. But I'm less concerned about that than the specifics of changing that one section. I think there are a number of concerns, particularly because that section of Westwood hosts about 900 buses a day and tens of thousands of cars. And although I think the cycling community wants it, I ask myself why, because I think it's the most dangerous of the possible north-south routes we could take. And I would like to see this come back with all the other amendments and be certain they all come back together and none gets left behind, and actually take a closer look at this and whether we can substitute Westwood for another alternative, or determining that we find the best alternative rather than specifically speaking to that. So if I can find a way to do that through this process, I'm happy to vote for it. Otherwise, I'll have to vote against the whole thing till it happens.
Terry Kaufman, Macias. The only amendments that are referenced in the action today, the potential action on the agenda, are the original three. So if the council is going to indicate its support for the director's initiation of those three, that's one thing. The director could indicate, and I think he did, that they do have the other six, but I wouldn't be comfortable with you even indicating support for the other six at this time, because that's really not part of what this action is about.
So there's no legal way for us to amend it to return with all those amendments?
Initiation of general plan amendments, City Council can do it, City Planning Commission can do it, or the director can do it. The director can absolutely do that, and he's indicated that he will do that.
Thank you.
In reference to Westwood Boulevard, Councilman, so we are going to analyze those amendments, and just to give you some level of comfort, none of those public improvements have a capital program behind them. So in terms of those lane changes, anything that would take place under the current plan that's in place would not happen prior to these amendments getting heard by your body and the Planning Commission and fully analyzed. So there isn't so much of that conversation we had about you wanting to be surprised by these in your community and having people show up at your doorstep. Those implementation plans aren't in place, and I've talked to the general manager of DOT, and we don't have any intent of bringing those in a rush fashion until these amendments have been heard and voted on by your body.
Claire Bowen, City Planning Department, just wanted to add to that comment, is that even once we bring back the revised version, and maybe it does include an alternative to Westwood, that there's nothing in the plan that, again, is going to put those improvements in tomorrow. One of the things to Councilman Englander's concerns we've made very much different in this plan compared to the 2010 bicycle plan was really talking about the importance and the value of community engagement, and that we would not be putting any of those improvements in until you did more engagement, more environmental review, and more kind of design development. So this plan really talks to an iterative process to actually implement things, so you won't be seeing things kind of surprised in your backyards in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Rue?
Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Englander, for reaffirming and putting front and center and supporting me in that amendment to put not just public safety, but also community input front and center, as Councilmember Cedillo eloquently explained. And there's no doubt that Los Angeles needs a viable plan that enhances the public safety and mobility of our neighborhoods and much of the work has been done for many years and months prior to me taking office. But I was elected to more truly engage the impacted communities, and I believe we must put significant value on community input. Otherwise, we open ourselves to strong community input, strong community opposition, mistrust, and more litigation. And this plan must be specific about what we need for our fire and police departments to be effective in keeping our communities safe. Of course, we must enhance the opportunities for bike or walk to work, and we must enhance the safety of every person using the street, whether it's a pedestrian or a driver. But I have serious concerns that this plan could have unintended consequences that complicate our ability to mitigate cut-through traffic and provide for public safety. And as stated before, in August, with my colleagues, I fought for changes to the mobility plan to prioritize public safety and community engagement. Several of my colleagues also had other significant concerns. Unfortunately, today, I'm faced with voting for a plan that does not address these concerns. I strongly believe that we need to vote on a plan that includes both community engagement and public safety, and not review and adopt amendments separate from passing such a comprehensive change in city law. Now that we have more attention of the neighborhoods and have created an avenue for more community engagement, we should allow for the Central Planning Commission to review and act on all the proposed amendments. This gives the communities and the affected city departments the opportunity to weigh in on amendments and the full proposal prior to our final council action. I therefore move, if I could propose a motion, and Mr. Englander, if you could help me with the wordsmithing of it, because I believe that the amendments we approved were very critical, as my colleagues have stated, and as are the other amendments that I and my colleagues have submitted. Thus, if we could hold off on this item today and direct the City Planning Commission to review these amendments with ample community input and bring it to us with a complete version for a vote. And is there anything else I'm missing?
Let me ask you for a point of clarification. Yeah. Would that include moving the amendments then to the supporting the Director of Planning to move those amendments and work with the CPC to bring those back? It wouldn't stay here? Is that what you're suggesting?
It would go, so we would keep it the way it is now, but we asked the Department of Planning to reevaluate the mobility plan with the inclusion of the amendments.
The Director of Planning would support his initiation?
Yes, support his initiation, that's right.
Of those amendments? Okay.
Point of order?
All amendments.
I'd like to make a point of order. I don't believe that we are allowed to make motions in committee. We can ask for recommendations, but making a motion here would be improper. So if we are talking about recommendations, I think that's significantly different.
That's correct.
Let me, as a chair, sustain that for the Plum Committee. And I also just want to make it clear that at least how we have operated in the past, whether it's right or wrong within our rules, I'm not sure, but we are operating jointly, discussing jointly, but any vote we take on any item is conducted separately by our respective committees up here, Transportation and the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. So while I saw two members, are you also on the Transportation Committee? Okay, well, I saw two members from different committees discussing a possible motion. I just want to be clear before we go any further that you understand that we're going to take separate motions or recommendations, as was clarified. If such recommendation is made in Plum, we would have to have it be made by somebody in the Plum Committee.
Okay. So it's the City Attorney's opinion that, I guess, who's actually the procedural City Attorney here today? Mr. Michelson, I'll defer to you because you can defer lower if you want, but you're the highest ranking City Attorney in the room.
That's always never a good thing. David Michelson with the Office of the City Attorney.
So the question was raised
Yes.
about whether a motion can be initiated in committee.
Right, it's my understanding, I'm looking at the clerk as well, motions have to be introduced at full council, where then the council president assists in assigning them to the appropriate committee. And if at full council, that's right.
That's correct. This is Roberto Mejia in the CLA's office. So it would be part of the committee report, Councilman Bonin, and it will be an additional recommendation, because this is not a meeting of the City Council.
I'm totally confused about what you just said, Mr. Smith.
Okay, you asked if Councilman Ryu could introduce the motion.
Right.
This is not a meeting of the city council. Well, actually, it is a meeting of the city council. I just thought about it because we have 9 members. So technically, Councilman Ryu could introduce his motion because the agenda was noticed as a meeting of the city council.
Could I just interject, Terry Kaufman Macias? However, as I said before, the only amendments that are referenced on the agenda relate to the 3, not the 6. That's not, that is not agendized. So if you...
A meeting of the council.
And motions introduced at full council, unless it's introduced as a Rule 23 urgency motion with appropriate findings, would then get assigned to the appropriate committee at the later date.
Just for a point of clarification, this is where I go back to my original question, that if the vote were actually, it yields and nets the same, I believe, that if, depending on how the outcome of the votes are in each committee, if in fact we bifurcated the vote and you voted for rescinding what was adopted previously by council and then adopting what was submitted by the CPC as one vote, and then the recommendation to support the Director of Planning to initiate the 3 amendments to go to CPC. The other 6 amendments have already gone and have been approved by council to go to CPC, so they're there. So it's a matter of sending the 3. Is that correct? So
I don't know if that, I
it's
don't
option
know if
2.
that's...
Mr. Englander is
Yes,
correct.
Mr. Englander. Let me say that for the Plum Committee, if you were asking whether we would entertain separate motions on that, let me say that if somebody in this committee would like to make that motion, and I'm willing to do it, which is to have 2 separate votes. One is to support the motion, which is to rescind and adopt the CPC version. A second recommendation would be to ask the Department of Planning Director to initiate a hearing of all the amendments, not just the 3, but all the amendments.
Correct.
That's just a statement of, that would just be a statement of support for that.
Yes.
Exactly. A statement of support, right?
Yes.
Well, and that's what I'm asking.
Yes, and I'd be fine with that in T committee as well.
Well, for clarification, my amendment was not that, though. Right.
That's right.
Okay.
Right on.
So, and my,
You can't do your...
and if I can introduce, my intent is not taking if we could not take the vote today, and whether it's a motion, if we could do it today, or if it's a recommendation, and we need to introduce that city council, so be it. But that's the intent of the
I
recommendation.
think the cleanest action would be each committee takes a vote, and whatever recommendation you have, Councilman Ryu, to be part of the committee report.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, Patrice Latimer, City Clerk's Office. Just to make things clear, as it relates to committee, there are no real motions, it's just recommendations, and there's no need to bifurcate. It's just basically a recommendation. So, and based on the chair's will, you can make a recommendation, and in this case, if you wish to vote on the motion as written, and also state the support and supporting the Director of Planning, you can do so. If it has the majority vote, then that is the recommendation from committee.
The reason for the bifurcation
there's a reason for it.
is not a procedural one. It's so that those who have a different opinion on the different elements can vote on those differently.
Correct, but it doesn't get reflected anywhere per se. It's
comes
a
out
little
in the
different than it is in council and committee.
But it would come out in the committee report,
Yes.
correct?
It can be stated in the summary,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
it would not be reflected in the recommendations.
Okay, thank you. That's right, and that's okay.
Right.
So, Mr. Chair, for Transportation Committee, I'm going to call the question on our committee and ask that if I could reiterate a motion, and that is to support the motion before us on item number 2, which states that we will rescind the August 11, 2015 resolution adopting the Mobility Plan 2035 as amended by the City Council. And number 2, adopt a resolution adopting the draft Mobility Plan 2035 as considered and recommended by the City Planning Commission, the Mayor on May 28, 2015, and June 5, 2015, respectfully. So that's the motion before us. I would also, after we take that vote, ask that we entertain a motion to support or a recommendation that will be reflected in our report to support the director initiating bringing all amendments proposed at our initial adoption to the CPC. So,
One additional factor, Terry Kaufman Macias. The other item in your first motion would have to include consideration of the final EIR in case number ENV 2013-0911, EIR certified on August 11, 2015 as the environmental clearance for the proposed project pursuant to California Environmental Quality Guidelines, Section 15162.
okay, that's part of motion one, some technical language for that, correct? Okay. So on item number one, on the resolution, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Are those opposed? No. Okay, there's aye for myself as well. Fuentes, Weezer, Harris Dawson, yes. Cedillo and Englander, no. On the second item, which is a recommendation for supporting the planning director to initiate a hearing at the CPC on the amendments proposed at the council meeting where we adopted the mobility plan. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is it's a recommendation to support the Director of Planning initiating a hearing at the Citywide Planning Commission on the amendments that were made at the adoption of the mobility plan by City Council. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed? That's unanimous. And for the record, we understand that the planning director has indicated that a hearing on the three initial amendments will take place December 17th. And the other amendments, because those need further review and analysis, will come back to go to CPC sometime in February, correct? That's our current understanding. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now for Transportation Committee. We'll do a roll call vote on consideration of environmental impact report in case number EV-2013-0911-EIR, certified on August 11th, 2015, as the environmental clearance for the proposed project pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, Section 15162. As indicated in the motion by me and Mr. Huizar and Fuentes and Buscaino, and a resolution relative to rescinding the August 11th, 2015 resolution adopting the Mobility Plan 2035 as amended by the City Council, and adopting a resolution adopting the draft Mobility Plan 2035 as considered and recommended by the Los Angeles City Planning Commission and the Mayor on May 28th, 2015 and June 5th, 2015, respectively. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Huizar?
Yes.
Mr. Roux?
No.
Mr. Koretz?
No.
And Mr. Bonin is a yes. So that's a tie vote, so there will be no recommendation from the Transportation Committee on that matter. On the second issue, recommending or requesting that the Director of Planning supporting the Director of Planning, initiating a hearing at CPC on the amendments put forth by the City Council on August 11th regarding Mobility Plan 2035. Mr. Huizar?
Yes.
Mr. Roux?
Yes.
Mr. Koretz?
Yes.
And Mr. Bonin is a yes.
Hey, next item.
So excuse me, Mr. Chair, just for the record, for the Transportation Committee, the report, since there was a majority as it relates to the support, there will be a committee report that will indicate there. Also, the no recommendation will just be indicated in the summary, because the part that you actually were a majority on is the support. So that generates a committee report.
It's a support on the issue with the planning director. It's not on the bulk of the motion to rescind and readopt.
Correct, but since the committee voted on it and there was a majority, it goes forward. Just as if the same part's going forward for Plum. So unless you were doing it in just sort of a ceremonial sort of way.
Well, the committee still won't have a recommendation on the rescinding and readopting.
There is no recommendation for that.
Yes.
So, right.
Right.
Good. Next item on thank you very much, Mr. Chair from T Committee. On the other items remaining, are those joint items or
3 motions, council member, in your district. Item 3 is a motion, Weezer Bonin. These motions were already considered by T Committee.
Yes.
And T Committee included additional instructions. So now Plum is hearing them for the first time. So item 3 is a motion, Weezer Bonin, instructing DOT to report on a plan to reevaluate the configuration of streets in downtown.
Okay.
So your action, Councilman, if you choose to, is to adopt and concur with the additional instructions of T Committee.
Yes, let's move on those items and adopt, and we will get a report back. We will, just for the record, ask for ongoing report backs to committee on the progress of these 3 motions. If I could just ask and remind staff that we will be requesting those progress reports intermittently.
And
Great.
would you like me to read into the record 4
Yes,
and
please.
5?
Can you read those into the motion? And can you read those into the record, please?
Sure. Councilman, item 4 is a motion, Weezer Bonin, instructing DOT to take immediate steps to implement leading pedestrian interval signal, LPI, timing at intersections in downtown. And then item 5, the last item, is a motion, Weezer Bonin, instructing the Bureau of Engineering, DOT planning to treat the Harlem Alley as a pilot project for a vacated pedestrian alley with a public easement.
Yes.
So,
Thank you. We will adopt those items. Any objection to those? No objections?
with the additional recommendations from T Committee, or instructions from T Committee.
Yes.
Yes.
And, yes, okay. No objections? So ordered. Thank you.
And then now, public comment.
Any public comment? No public comment. That adjourns Plum and adjourns Transportation.
Committee as well.
Thank you.
There's a card for public comment.
I didn't see it.
There should be cards for 3 and 4.
Oh, there were cards for 3 and 4. I apologize. I looked under public comment. Okay. My apologies to my committee. I didn't see those. Okay. Deborah Murphy, Gerard Wright, Hillary Norton, and Dennis Hidman on item number 3. My apologies.
Not a problem, council member. Deborah Murphy, Executive Director of Los Angeles Walks. I'll speak on both my items. Is that okay?
Sure, that's fine. 2
Okay, on
minutes.
3 and 4, I want to show support for those items to improve the pedestrian and walkability of downtown Los Angeles streets by evaluating the configuration of the streets, as well to the leading pedestrian interval that's already been done on Broadway is a great success. And I want to encourage that activity to go on in neighborhoods throughout the city of Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Gerard Wright, Hillary Norton, Dennis Hinman.
Gerard Wright speaking on behalf of Sierra Club Los Angeles Chapter's Transportation Committee. With item number 3, we see a golden opportunity to create and implement transit malls for downtown Los Angeles, and particularly along 7th Street with the new Korean Air Tower that's going up and the reconfiguration that may take place there. That's a wonderful opportunity to engage one of the busiest metro stations that LA has at 7th Street Metro Center, with a transit mall stretching from Figueroa all the way potentially to Broadway, and even continuing that along Broadway from City Hall down to even Pico Boulevard, to really engage pedestrians, cyclists, transit, and find a mobility and parking plan that can connect people together, so that we're no longer, competing with each other for the same road space and the same street space on our very congested and starting to grow in our density and our activity in downtown Los Angeles. So just want to put that idea forward. Denver, San Francisco, and Minneapolis have done the same thing with great success. Thank you.
Thank you. Hillary Norton and Ms. Norton, do you want to speak on both items 3 and 4 together?
Yes, I do, especially to save time. I just wanted to agree with my two predecessors speaking on this item, these 2 items, but I wanted to add 2 things. One, visibility is a real challenge for downtown. If you could add those lit crosswalks like you've done so successfully in our community, Eagle Rock, I think that would be very, very helpful as people are trying to see people as they cross. In addition, looking at protected turn lanes, and so turn arrows, that as a pedestrian, it really helps to look at separating car traffic and pedestrian traffic, and so to add turn arrows at intersections that don't already have them as a pedestrian, that really helps right now in downtown. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Dennis Inman?
Hi, Dennis Hyman. I'd like to say that fiscal years 2011 through 2014, there were almost 200 miles of bike lanes installed, and the motor vehicle involved collisions with bicycles only increased 1% in 2013 and was reduced by 6% in 2014 and 15. This year, they seem to be level with 14. So, and it also increased the bicycle commuting by 30%. So it is pretty well proven within the city of Los Angeles that the bike lanes are reducing the amount of motor vehicle involved collisions for bicyclists. But in downtown LA, we need to have barrier protection if possible for people that are going to use bicycle sharing. They're not, you know, lycra clad bicyclists. They're just going to be occasionally using a bicycle. So to encourage that, we need separation through barriers of some sort. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that concludes our public speaking on those two items. Again, to reaffirm the vote, we took that earlier. We just took public comment on after the vote. So my apologies for that. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.